I have a couple of those papers from 30 years ago today. Man lands on the moon with perfect touchdown. That's the Times. And here on the Daily Mirror, man walks on the moon. The date, July the 21st, 1969. Well, one famous stargazer who commentated live for the BBC on that first moon landing is Patrick Moore. And he joins me now from Sussex. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, we know where you were 30 years ago today. What was it like?
Well, the point is this, you see. I was in the television studio doing the commentaries. Of course, I knew both Neil and Buzz, because I'd been on the NASA moon map team. And the thought that went by my mind were quite simple. This was a first. If they'd made a faulty landing, they couldn't have got back, and there was no provision for rescue. That was the great weakness of Apollo. Therefore, when I heard Neil's voice coming through, the Eagle had landed, I felt overwhelming relief.
Did you think at any point they could have made a faulty landing? Were you very concerned that it might not go according to plan?
Obviously I was. This was the first time it had been done. As I say, there was no leeway, you see. And also, on the return journey, when they started back to orbit, again, they had one ascending engine, and that had to work properly first time. Luckily it did. But it was a very dangerous operation indeed, and I think we were all immensely relieved when it went off pretty well without a hitch.
And it's certainly one operation that so many people remember so well. We've been talking to some people at the Science Museum to see what they thought of the event.
And I'm more amazed by it now than I was then, I think. As an adult, it seems. And that's what we find here at the museum, is that adults are kind of more amazed by it than kids.
I remember in the words what Neil Armstrong said.
What did he say?
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I'm surprised that we haven't actually landed on the moon and we're not inhabiting it, because it's 30 years and you would expect that sort of advance to have been made, but it hasn't, has it?
I remember my nan saying that they was really disappointed because they didn't find nothing on the moon.
Well, there you go. But I mean, in scientific terms, how significant of an event was it?
Well, I think there's no doubt at all. This was... Oh, was that me?
Yes, no, that's you, absolutely. Yes, we're talking to you, sorry.
I'm sorry about that. Well, the point is this, you see. It was the first time we'd shown that we can go through space, the first link between two worlds. And therefore, it was immensely significant. And if Apollo had failed, then the entire space program would have been delayed for many, many years. As things are, all right, we've not gone back to the moon for various reasons. I'm quite sure we will in the near future. And I'll be very surprised if there's not a fully fledged lunar base by 2010. And that will be of immense value to mankind. A laboratory, a medical centre, research centre, communications, and of course, purely international. And that can do nothing but good.
But as we heard,
it did depend very much upon Apollo.
But as we heard in one of those people who we just spoke to at the Science Museum, the one woman there saying it was 30 years ago, she's surprised that we're not actually living on the moon by now. I mean, is that foreseeable? It is, I think. It depends, of course, what you mean by living. If you mean turning the moon into a second Earth, the answer is no, you can't give it a breathable atmosphere. There will certainly be extensive scientific bases, and I think we shall see those fairly early in the new century. They will be of immense value to mankind. Actually living there, well, yes, I mean, if you thought living in a lunar base, of course you can. What you can't do, because it'll live in the open. Well, there you go, Patrick Moore. I've just been told that you were, in fact, actually sitting in this very studio we're sitting in now, 30 years ago today. So there you go. Thank you very much for joining us. I was indeed, and I'm very well. Good. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.